podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello everyone and welcome to How Are the Podcast. It's Gav and you join us for the Wednesday morning news update. We've got lots to talk about. Sunderland, as they have done throughout the summer, have been busy. Lots to talk about. So we thought, why not? Let's get together and have a little chat. Joining me first up, we've got Ant Waterson back on. Hello, Ant.
Hello, mate. How are you?
Very good. And also with us, it's Johnny Blue. Hello, mate.
Good afternoon, evening, morning, whatever time this is going out. Nice to be back. Plenty to talk about as usual.
Yeah, morning, mate. So it will be out in the morning, just to let you know. Unless you're in, I don't know, Australia.
Mozambique, for example. I mean, just sort of
I don't know what the time difference is in Mozambique. We'll have to check up on that. Thanks for the segue there. Seamless as we talk first about the announcement that Reinildo Mandava has signed for Sunderland, finally announced. That one was leaked last week through Fabrizio Romano, I think, and various other journalists. But it has taken a little while to get that one over the line. Sunderland finally announced it. He did his medical on Monday in Madrid. Looks like the club sent over a couple of members of the media team to get a few photos and things like that of him as he was out and about in Madrid. And we got some good photo ops. I think they announced it with a picture of the new away shirt, looking over I don't know what building it was, and somebody's going to be screaming at us right now, going, how do you not know what that building was? But yeah, it was obviously some poignant building in Madrid. But yes, we finally have our man, 31-year-old, has spent the last 3 or 4 years with Atletico Madrid in La Liga. Somebody who we talked about a couple of weeks ago when the news first broke, but a big signing and somebody who brings much needed experience, albeit not in the Premier League, to the squad, has played in La Liga, the Champions League, just been playing in the Club World Cup over the summer. So somebody who I think will add a lot to the squad, Johnny. I think this could be a really important sign. I know we get excited when we see 30 million for Diarra and 25 million for this and 20 million for that. And, like we see all this money getting chucked around, but then we go out and sign a really experienced campaigner for nothing. He's coming on a free. It looks like a good bit of business, this.
I fail to see kind of how it couldn't be good business, really. I mean, like you say, he's coming on a free. He was playing at the Club World Cup a couple of weeks ago. And, okay, yeah, I was going to say you don't play in that tournament if you're not a good player. I suppose, there were literally like amateurs there. So you don't play in that tournament for a European team if you're not at least half decent. And, yeah, I mean, you look at his CV, I think, I can't remember how many games, but, up towards 100 games, possibly just over in all competitions for a Diego Simeone Atletico Madrid team. You don't make that many appearances for him if you're not a bloody good defender, do you?
Yeah.
So he's obviously a good player. Still only 31, so I think it's a 2-year deal, isn't it, that we've signed him on?
Yeah.
So you'd expect that he's going to be kind of physically all right for at least the next couple of seasons, you'd hope. And yeah.
Saw quite a good little training video of him doing some work on his own where I know those things are edited carefully, but he looked pretty quick and pretty sharp and in good nick. Didn't have much body fat on him. I mean, he hasn't been off long enough to put any weight on, has he really? But yeah, he looks in good nick, Johnny.
Yeah, exactly. If he's a good professional, which again he will be if he's played under Simeone for that long, I think we should have no concerns about that. Like I say, CV's great, loads of experience. Free transfer shows that the club are willing to use that market when there's a good opportunity, which is great. And yeah, it's like you say, it's the sexier transfers are the ones for the multi-million euro deals. But this one, I think, shows that, it just shows the club are shopping in all available markets, I think, which is important for a club like us, coming up to the Premier League. You've got to try and take every advantage you can get. And this is just another aspect of that. So yeah, I'm really, really happy with this signing.
The announcement from the club came out, and some bits in here which I think are worth picking out. He said, "It's a dream come true because it's my dream to play in the Premier League. It's a dream to play for a historic club like Sunderland. I'll give everything on the pitch for my team. Sunderland have given me this opportunity, so I'm excited." Talk a little bit about the fact he's the first Mozambican player to play in the Premier League, which is obviously a big deal for him. being, a proud Mozambican. The journey to Europe was very hard, very difficult, but I never do these without tripping over my words. But I can pass this message on to the young players. Everything is possible, but you need to have focus. When you're focused, when you fight and you give everything, focus is the most important thing. I want the fans to trust me. We are going to do everything every day to bring glory to this club. I will work every day at 120%. I give everything on the pitch for my club and colleagues. We will fight until the end. Saying all the right things, Ant, isn't he? I think that's what we want to hear. Hopefully he can back it up.
I like how he's put like the 110% and made that a little bit more. I'll give you 10% more than what everyone else is saying they're going to give you. But to be fair, he talks well on that, doesn't he? It sounds like anything you want to hear. And I like it when they do say that they like to come to a historical club like us, because it is true. We are a historical club and everything like that. And I remember when it was Laurienté, when he came and he literally like read all the history about us, and he was all like already well like knowledge about us before he even came, which is good enough. This lad sounds that is exactly the same, and he's right there. You know what you've got to give. He's the first ever Mozambican player in the Premier League, and it gives that kind of generation of that player a dream to come into the Premier League, and he's the first one to do it. So fair play to him. He looks very, very quick, which is what we probably need, especially if we're going to be looking to counter-attack next season. So we do need pace on both sides. I think
that's been a big thing about the recruitment. So, I mean, we'll get on to one of these other players that looks like it's coming in, but every player we've signed looks like they have a bit of pace. That's important, isn't it, being athletic in the Premier League? So, yeah, I agree. I think if we can bring, even at his age, to be, he looks rapid, to be honest. Like, I'm not looking at old clips of him. I'm on about like clips from last season. He looks absolutely lightning.
Yeah. You don't lose that pace when you're 31, do you? You know what I mean? It's about 34, 35 when the legs start to go. So we look as if we're going to be getting him in, in his prime, which will be good. And also coming from Atletico, he'd be a shithouse, because it's the way Simeone breeds his players. He'll be a complete not a shithouse. I think we'll love him. I think we will. I think he's going to be one of them players that the fans take to very quickly. Like I said, bit of experience, bit of Champions League experience, which will be vital for us, and it gives us just that little bit more on the pitch to help the young lads. So yeah, really good signing. Not really spent a penny on him because he's a free. So yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, imagine we'll have made up for that in wages, though.
I'd imagine so. Yes.
He'll not be on 10 grand a week, will he? Let's be honest. No, I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do, and I think one of the most important things I picked out of that was that he's made it clear very early on that he's there to guide the young players. Which, if I'm thinking right now, is he now our oldest player? I think he possibly is at 31.
Oldest outfielder, I would say. Because Simon Moore.
Yes, of course. Yeah, Simon Moore will be.
I mean, keepers are always older. Oldest outfielder, I think.
Yeah.
I think it'll be him and then O'Nien now, won't it?
Yeah, I think so. So, he will naturally assume that responsibility. And you'd like to think he's not going to be the first player who's sort of touching 30, 20, 29, 30, 31, that age range that we're going to bring in. I think it's just important that when you do sign an experienced player, they're not on the downturn. Like, yeah, he wasn't. He didn't play every game last season, but he was still important. If you look at some of the teams he played against last season, he was trusted to play in the last 16 of the Champions League against Real Madrid, for instance. And when I see stuff like that, I think, well, if Simeone trusts you in that's the biggest game, that's their biggest rival in the Champions League. If you're trusted to play in that game, then you've got something about you. You know what I mean? And we've already spoke a little bit about Reinildo, and I said Ronaldo there. Reinildo last week, and we talked about the similarities between him and perhaps Trey Hume. Quite, that profile of player. Yes, he's got pace, but he likes to get stuck in and work hard. And as Ant touched on there, Simeone, that's what he wants from his players. So if he's, to be honest, the big thing for me was when he said goodbye to Atletico last week, the response of the club and the fans.
Yeah.
Told me that he's left a lasting impression there. It wasn't just a one-liner on the website. It was a big deal was made out of him. And I'm just really excited to see him play. I hope he's, ready to go. I mean, it did say that he won't be joining the group until later in the month. Obviously, because he's just finished playing the Club World Cup. He's not really had much of a break. And what we don't want to do is just rush him in too early and get him involved in pre-season too early. He will get a chance to relax and recuperate. And I guess that gives other players a bit of a head start on him who might want to get in ahead of him. He's going to be coming in, adding competition to the group. We know Leo Hjelde injured. I think Serkin's had something done over the summer with his wrists, so we don't know if he's going to be available in pre-season. But look, he's going to have competition for his place, and that's what we want, isn't it, Johnny? That's what we want all over the park, is good players coming in to add to the group we've already got and then push them as far as they can. If Dennis Serkin is a good player, then he'll rise to the challenge, won't he? And that's I don't think that can be seen as a bad thing.
Yeah, this is why I think it's such a shrewd signing to get him in on a free, the end of his Atletico contract. So I'm sure he's wanting to play as much football as he can for us, but I'm also sure he's not under the illusions that he's coming here as a marquee signing who's going to have to play every minute of every game. He's going to be well aware that he's, inching into his 30s and he's not necessarily going to just be a guaranteed name on the team sheet. So, I'm sure the club have obviously explained in detail what their plan is like to him. They're not going to come out and tell the rest of us, by the way, this is exactly what we want to do with Reinildo. It's going to be kept in-house, but he'll have some clear expectations around his game time. So it's sensible for us to bring in somebody of his quality and pedigree, but who is going to be able to accept a slightly kind of reduced role to be able to provide competition for Serkin. Because, you can run the risk sometimes of, if you have two really, really good players for the same position, then it's a tricky balancing act to try and keep them happy if they're at the same kind of stage of their career. Whereas I think these kind of signings, you don't want your whole 11 to be 31-year-old free transfers who are potentially, going to slightly decline over the next few seasons. But bringing in kind of one or two of those, or even, two or three, to provide decent competition through the squad, I think makes perfect sense. And it's it's such a low-risk way of getting that experience into a squad that badly needs it.
Yeah. We've had a question from Cam SAFC 93 Ant on Twitter, and he said, a lot's been said about the lack of Premier League experience, which I agree needs to be addressed. But how valuable is his European experience, 25 Champions League and 6 Europa League appearances, and his experience of big games in Spain and in France? I know we've just kind of touched on this, but is that almost as valuable as bringing in a player who's Premier League experience? I mean, let's think of, off the top of your head, somebody similarly matched from another club in that position might be, I don't know, Ben Chilwell, somebody like that, maybe. Like, who would you prefer? Would you prefer Ben Chilwell or this guy? I'm not saying it's that obvious, but the point being, how much is pure experience more important than what this guy brings, which is massive experience, not in England, but in the Champions League, in big competitions, playing for a big club, winning league titles in France.
You hit the nail on the head, didn't you, when you mentioned the Madrid derby?
It's all relative, isn't it?
One of the biggest games in Spain, obviously. Just probably the El Clasico beats it in the Spanish league. So, and if he's getting trusted to do that, he's coming with a really, really good pedigree. I kind of going back to the question. I agree with that. We probably do need a couple of experienced heads from the Premier League. But I'm sure that'll come. I'm sure we're not going to go into the first game of the season with a team of young'uns and Reinildo playing left back who's 31 and the rest of them have got an average age of 3. You know what I mean? I don't think that'll happen. So I think we've just got to be patient, to be honest. It probably is something where at the minute I'm not too concerned about that we haven't got that much Premier League experience, but it'll probably will be needed at some point in the season when, the chips are down or something. We need a dodgy free kick or a dodgy goal or something like that, where those experienced players do kind of step up a little bit and get clever free kicks and stuff. So, yeah, at the minute, I'm not as false. But ask us again in 6 weeks if we still haven't addressed it, then I probably will be a bit more worried.
Moving along then, there has been the breaking news, I guess, on Tuesday about Djordje Petrovic. Got that one right, nearly got it wrong. I'm getting great with names, honest. You can hear the improvement, can't you, every week? Djordje Petrovic, the Chelsea goalkeeper, looks like he is heading to Bournemouth and not to Sunderland. He would prefer to play in front of 11,000 fans instead of... I'm not bitter or anything. But no, it looks like he's off to Bournemouth. Chelsea and Bournemouth have agreed a deal over the transfer, according to Fußballtransfers.com, who I think are the German equivalent of Football Mercato, who people might be more familiar with. But that story seems to be filtering through. Apparently he's agreed terms. There's just a couple of bits to sort out, and he's not coming to Sunderland. Disappointing, that one, Johnny, but I think this is something which I said to Ant before we came on, and it remains true. We're going to get knocked back. We're a newly promoted team. We're actually setting our bar quite high, so we're trying to attract players who, for all intents and purposes, in some people's eyes, might be out of our league a little bit. I'm not saying that this guy is, but he's certainly a good goalkeeper who, no disrespect intended to Bournemouth. I know I said 11,000 fans and all that. Bournemouth are a good club. They've done well recently. They're a top half Premier League team. They're established. They've got a good record of developing players now. I mean, there's a Heisen in the centre half, just went to Real Madrid. They can show that to players and be like, look, this is what we can do if you do well for us. So I understand it, but we're going to get knocked back. There's going to be more of these knockbacks. It's disappointing it's happened with two goalkeepers now. But the most important thing I would say is that we're tabling big bids for goalkeepers. We're not going out there and trying to lowball teams. By all accounts, 25 million was on the table for this goalkeeper, and before that, Marcin Bulka, who I think was rumoured to be around 20 million euros. So we've got the money there to recruit a good goalkeeper. It will happen. There's plenty of them out there. Petrovic and Bulka are not the only two goalkeepers out there who can do a very good job for Sunderland. And I think we just have to be patient and be mindful of the fact that we have got the money there to sign someone decent, and it'll happen. We're very early on in the window. We're going to get knocked back, but it happens.
Yeah, I'm surprised that it's only been keepers we seem to have been knocked back for to this point anyway. I mean, you just said the same thing.
That we know of.
That we know of. The ones that have got to the point where they're getting reported by Fabrizio Romano and whoever. Like you say, we're targeting that level of players, probably a level or so above what your standard newly promoted team tends to look for.
Yeah.
For a variety of reasons. It's not like we're some geniuses who've just worked out. You need to have the money for it and all the rest of it. But it's going to happen. It's part and parcel of Premier League football. There's not just us. There's the other 19 teams. Now, yes, we're not all shopping in the same, kind of ponds or however you would phrase it, but every one of those Premier League teams can at least afford to match what we're willing to offer on wages, or they can probably match the transfer fees, and everybody's offering the same level of football. There's a few that are offering Europe. Now, yeah, Bournemouth aren't one of them, but as you say, I think, did they finish 9th last season? Certainly top half.
Something like that.
And they were known as a team playing good football. Iraola is a really highly rated manager they've got there. And there was a natural spot in their team for a keeper because they just lost Kepa as well. So that's one that, look, if we'd been knocked back in favour of another newly promoted team, if it had maybe been Burnley instead, then I'd maybe feel a little bit more concerned. But, taking me Sunderland specs off, I can't criticise the lad for going to Bournemouth over Sunderland. If that was the choice in the end, I think it does make sense from a lot of angles. And like you say, the fact that the money's there and they've been willing to offer it for two different keepers shows that we will bring somebody in. Now, it's not ideal for your first, well, I was going to say your top two targets, what we assume to be the top two targets, to be the ones to have knocked you back, because then you're moving further down your list. But there's more than two good goalkeepers across Europe. There's more than two who'd improve us. So I'm not overly worried. It's just, it's a bit frustrating and you don't like it, but nothing to panic about for me.
Yeah, I guess the one of the issues with what we're doing, Ant, is we're taking what's been reported and we don't know much of what's truth. We get tidbits from reporters about things, but the Petrovic things kind of went quiet for a little while, and that never fills you with hope. And on top of that, I don't think that story's actually being reported by Fabrizio Romano. We're considering that Fabrizio Romano has been all over every single Sunderland transfer story that's been correct this summer. He hasn't even reported that we had interest. As far as I'm aware, I might be wrong, but I'm fairly certain that's the case. So, I mean, it could be that, we weren't actually in for him beyond initial inquiries, maybe. I don't know. I just think that the fact that he's not said anything tells me that there might not been as much of what we've been led to believe is in this. I don't know if you would agree.
Yeah, I suppose. I think I know where you're coming from. Plus, you've got to think as well, like for Petrovic, if he has got a young family or whatever to move to Bournemouth, I think he'd probably still live in London, and travel across. Other than come all the way up here. If it was a rumor and just a one of them pipe ones, then fair enough. But if there was genuine interest and we were interested in him, I am a little bit disappointed that he has gone there, because I think he's an excellent goalkeeper and I think he'll do well for Bournemouth. But yeah, we move on quickly. You supposed said it. If there's 20-odd million quid available for a goalkeeper, there will be one coming, won't there? And we will sign a decent, hopefully a really good goalkeeper here. And they've obviously got the idea on getting a goalkeeper who commands his box a little bit better than what Anthony Patterson does, because both of them, Bulker and Petrovic, are quite a loud kind of goalkeeper and all that stuff. So yeah, I'm not a little bit disappointed if it was to be the case, because I think he is good, but it is what it is, mate.
Yeah, and I think Alan Nixon at the weekend was reporting that we were interested in Sam Johnston from Wolves, which isn't as exciting as signing somebody for 20-odd million quid, but he is experienced in the Premier League. He's played for England. You could also see us looking down that route too. So I guess it's a case of see what happens with that one,
Yeah.
We're going to sign somebody at some point in goal, I would have thought, also. Not one that I'm particularly worried about. Not on the 8th of July, anyways.
No, that's it. And to be fair, you've got to be thinking there is more pressing matters than a goalkeeper. If we get one early, brilliant. But you've got to be looking, a centre-half's probably a bigger priority. Maybe another striker there, like to give Mayenda and Isidore a little bit of a push, might be a little bit more pressing than a goalkeeper, which we've already got a good quality goalkeeper in and a decent backup in Simon Moore. And you've got to remember as well, Matty Young, who was rumoured to be the next big thing, so see what happens.
Yeah, and we've just, I saw earlier today as well, another young goalkeeper has signed their first pro deal. Was it Metcalf? I might be wrong. We just seem to have millions. We've got millions of goalkeepers that are all going to be world beaters, so we're not worried, are we? We'll move on to the next one, which is Chemsdine, which I got that pronunciation from my friend Elijah the other day. Chemsdine Talbi. Looks like he is going to be confirmed at any moment. That one seems to have taken a little bit of time. From what I gather, the club would have preferred him to have been on Wearside over the weekend, but for whatever reason, it never happened. And he was pictured landing in Ponteland Airport on Tuesday morning, /afternoon, getting off the plane there. So, that one's just a matter of time. You never know. By the time this goes out, we might have even announced that signing. But somebody who I think our fans have managed to get their heads around is coming in. 20-odd million euro fee to Club Brugge. If anybody hasn't heard it yet, you can listen to my interview with Elijah Michels. And Elijah is a Belgian video football scout. He gave us his analysis of the player and what we can expect. So if you haven't heard that yet, make sure you catch up on it. But just to come to you, Johnny, this one's interesting to me because not the finished product. We're signing a player who's very much still developing, just turned 20-year-old, but has played 40-odd games last season, 7 goals, 5 assists, played lots of Champions League football, which I think says a lot about what the club thought of him. And a lot of stats flying around about his pace because apparently he is one of the quickest players in Europe. So that's something which I think will excite fans, regardless of how finished he is of an article. If he's got pace and he's got trickery, he's going to excite fans from time to time, isn't he? So that's another one which will be nice to get over the line. Some competition on the wings for Romain Mundle and for Patrick Roberts, and a player who we don't know a lot about, but I think given a bit of time and patience can certainly give us something to be excited about. And I think the club obviously will think a lot of him. We don't commit. I keep making this point, but we spending money is not something that we've been used to for a while now. So when you see us spending 20-odd million pounds on a 19-year-old winger, you just can't help but get excited about it.
Yeah, 100%. It's it's one of those where you do just sit up and take notice because, like you say, you just see the numbers and see his age and you think, well, he must be a world beater because why else would they chuck this money on him? But aside from that, massive optimism, I think it's a really, really interesting transfer, this one, because, like you say, so young, very limited body of work in terms of his prior experience, almost the total opposite to Reinildo in that sense. We've got one player who's got vast amounts of experience and one who's right at the beginning. The amount of Champions League games excites me because, like you say, I think that shows, and again, look, there are some teams in the Champions League who just get smashed every week and go out. Club Brugge, not necessarily one of those. They're not going to win it, but they're not embarrassing themselves every week. Not to the degree that some teams would. So for him to make, I think he's made 11 appearances in the Champions League in total. And if you've just turned 20 and you've played double figures number of games in the Champions League, you're a decent footballer, by and large. But it's interesting to have spent so much money on him. And he's kind of the first big money signing, assuming he comes in, outside of the spine of the team. Reinildo's coming at left back, but he's on a free. The others have been central midfielders. We seem to know that we're committing a large chunk of money for a goalkeeper. This lad as a winger, obviously, is the first one to break that mould. So it's a position we definitely need to strengthen. I mean, I think we could all agree that we need an upgrade on Patrick Roberts on the right wing. We certainly need an upgrade on Poveda as the backup. And we've lost Tommy Watson as well. So there are spaces there. This lad, from what I've seen, seems to be able to play either side, really, but I think slightly more off the right. But again, it's such a limited sample size. You can't really draw too much from it, but certainly at least versatile enough to play more than one position. So I think he should get plenty of football. I'm just interested to see if he's the level of player that we're bringing in who may or may not be one to start every game. What else have they got up the sleeves for those attacking positions? Because he's not going to be the only one who comes in, is he? He's going to be one of a few who come in to strengthen the front line. So yeah, if that's the first one, and if he's not necessarily a nailed-on starter, then what does that mean coming, further down the road? I mean, again, it's really, really exciting stuff.
Yeah, when I spoke to Elijah the other day, he was talking about how he felt he was better off the left because he's predominantly right-footed. So to me, in my mind, he's Tommy Watson's replacement in the squad. We've lost one young winger, we've brought one in. But what's interesting, Dan, is that Elijah, his parting words were that he'll need patience from the fans because he's not going to just be coming in and hitting the ground running. Now, when you spend 20-odd million euros on a player, that expectation to hit the ground running is going to be there whether we want it to be or not. Fans are going to be waiting to see what the lad can do. And that's not to say he can't do it just because some people have said, look, he's going to need time. He might come here and it might completely raise his game and he might be ready to hit the ground running. And I think that's what the club will be hoping for. They'll be hoping to be signing players who can make a massive difference to the squad. And I think he's going to add important competition because, let's be honest, Romain Mundal is a fantastic player, but there are a couple of issues there in that. One, we don't know whether he can make the step up. I think he can, personally. I think he's one of the best players we've got. But the other issue is his injuries. He's had problems last season with injuries, which, his season was very stop-start. And that's going to mean that he has to prove his worth just as much as this new lad coming in does. Everybody's trying to prove themselves. There are very few Premier League appearances between this entire squad, not just Romain Mundal and whoever else. So, they're all there to prove themselves. And, Talbi's coming here because he thinks he can make a difference. He's not coming to Sunderland to sit on the bench and just pick up a wage. And, he's coming here because he's ambitious, right? He probably had offers all over Europe and he came to Sunderland and he's chose to do that and been given clearly some assurance over what we can do with him. So It makes the whole situation very interesting, doesn't it?
It does as well. And just to kind of go back to that, we have to be patient. There's not a 20-year-old footballer in the world who's the finished product yet. You become 23, 24, so I'm not all that worried about that anyway. If he's coming to, be an impact player or this, that and the other, then that's fine. And then, in 2 years, 3 years time when he is, at the best of his abilities, go out and play every week, it's not going to happen. That he's never going to play every week, is he? A 20-year-old. Chris Rigg doesn't play every week for us now, and we all think Chris Rigg's the second coming, don't we? So it is, like I say, it is what it is. Again, I've said that word so many times this year. But what I think is it's just giving us that depth again, isn't it? We've got, a player now with Patrick Roberts, with Romain Mundal either side, and this lad can play both sides as well, can't he? And down the right wing, we're going to have a right-footed winger for the first time in about 7 years. So that's even better. So yeah, I'm excited about that. I'm not really onto this one where we have to be patient and this, that, and the other, because I don't think the fans will immediately write him off after, say if he starts badly. It just won't happen. We've got to be patient, probably with every signing that comes in through the door. So this is one of them things. I'm excited. He looks very, very good on what I've seen on the on videos and stuff like that. Looks absolutely dynamically fast, which is what we need as a winger as well. So fair play. I totally agree about Mundell as well. You mentioned that, Gav. I think he is ready, but I just worry that he's gonna, if he misses 6 months of a season, we probably need to bring another left winger in as well, don't we? So see what happens. But I think another winger is probably one of them ones where I'll be happy for us to get another one in. Then we've got 4, so we're okay then, aren't we?
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, we'll see where that one goes. We've been linked with another left-sided player, Armand Lauriente, and that's a name who seems to have been linked with us for over a month or so now, and nothing really concrete coming of it, but various reports coming out from his end in Sassuolo, or his current club. Antonio Parrotto? I don't know. It's basically parrot, but in Italian.
Parrot in Italian.
Tony Parrott on X is reporting exclusive. Sassuolo have rejected Sunderland's first offer for Armand Lauriente. They are demanding over 30 million euros plus bonuses. The Frenchman is pushing to leave and does not want to renew. Gisolfi has no intention of giving up. Sassuolo's incomings also depend on the sale of Laurienté, who feels he has repaid his debt to the club. That's very specific information, Johnny. That makes me kind of think there's some grain of truth in it. But I don't know about you. I can't see us spending 30 million euros on clearly a very talented player who's already known to the director of football and the manager, which is important. But he did play in the second tier last season. Yeah, he won Player of the Season. He got promoted. He scored a lot of goals. He will be a Serie A player for all intents and purposes this season. But still, that's a lot of money. I think if we're really pushing for him, we'll probably end up somewhere in the middle of the two valuations, wherever they value him, wherever Sunderland value him. But interesting, another wide player. Now, another left-sided wide player too. Someone who can play apparently up front and off the left, but predominantly off the left. When I asked Alex Barker, the guy who we had on from The Athletic a couple of weeks ago, about him off air, he was saying, if you watch his highlight reels, he just scores absolute bangers from cutting inside and smacking them in. Said that is literally his entire game is just doing that. He said, so if you can put up with the fact he doesn't do much else than that, then he'd be a great signing for you. But interesting, all of this, because we don't know how much truth is in it, but it's still a name that won't go away, isn't it?
So Wilson Isidore Mark II then, basically.
Yeah,
if we get him, we've just cloned Wilson and got another version of him for the Prem. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, to be honest, Gav. I think the figure quoted there is the thing that gives me a bit of pause, and I'm like, 30 million seems like a lot of money. Like you say, a lad who's just come out of the second division in Italy. Yes, he might be brilliant. He could be worth 100 million in a few years' time, but we just have so many positions that we're definitely going to need to strengthen because, we still haven't brought a centre-half in. We may need more than one who are going to be, ready to come in and contribute from day one. Yes, they'll come cheaper than attackers comparatively, but they're still not going to come cheap. We haven't signed any other fullback cover other than Reinildo. There's still potentially a gap in the midfield, depending on who else, stays and goes. So there's a lot of work still to be done on the squad. So yeah, I'm thinking 30 million seems like a little bit much, but as you say, the rest of the information there's weirdly specific. So
yeah.
it's either true or this guy needs psychiatric help, because he's a compulsive liar. But assuming that the interest is genuine, I do think it makes sense in terms of the profile of the player and the position that we need to fill. But yeah, I would expect that fee to come down if he is going to join. Interesting as well, though, that again, much like with Talbi, a more versatile forward coming in again, we seem to be, other than Mayenda, and even Mayenda, really, if you think about it, can basically play off the right wing. we don't really seem to sign like one position forwards anymore. You know, we don't, since really probably Ross Stewart, like Mundell can play off either side, loads of the wings can play off either side, and then all the forwards we've signed, Rusin, Isidore, Mayenda, you know, the list goes on. And now these lads, they're all able to do a job somewhere or another else across the front three. So I think it signals that they're very conscious of the fact that, and I think you've made this point off air a few times as well, that we cannot afford to be playing people out of position as much as we did last season and the last few seasons. You know, we've had to rely on a lot of square pegs in round holes at times, as every club does, but in the Premier League, that'll hurt you very, very quickly and very, very painfully. So I think we're trying to do everything we can to make sure that we've always got at least somebody available for every position, no matter what combination of international duties and suspensions and injuries we've got, which is good if that is part of their thinking. I'm glad to see that they're trying to future-proof us.
Yeah, there are going to be loads of names over the next sort of month, 2 months that are going to be constantly linked to us. We'll never sign them. There'll be ones come out the blue. We've said this loads. You know, the amount of these players who we've actually signed who just came out of nowhere. I kind of touched on this before, but we follow the commentary on social media as though it's the actual timeline for what's happening, when the reality is we don't know the half of it, and the club are doing things which nobody's aware of. And, you know, by the time it gets leaked to somebody credible, you know, it's done and dusted and ready to be finalised, and that's why the club have decided to leak it. So, you know, this Laurienté one, I might be wrong, but I get a bit of like a Mendy feeling about this one from last year, where that one just wouldn't go away, and I don't know how actually interested we were in him. I guess we'll see. You know, another name who doesn't seem to be going away but hasn't actually been reported by anyone particularly credible is Djordje Petrovic, who plays for Lyon. Apparently Roma have been told it would cost 40 million euros to get him out of Lyon, which is obviously a lot of money. Whether we would pay that, I don't know. But somebody who has been linked quite a bit with us. So we're clearly in the market for forwards. We're going to spend a lot of money. It's a bit like what I said about goalkeepers before. The money's there. We're clearly going to spend it on somebody. It might not be the players that are being linked right now. Just be patient. You know, we'll see what happens. Anyways, before we depart, we have a bunch of questions from our lovely Twitter users. So I thought, why not? Well, we've got a little bit of time at the end of the show. Let's have a chat about what they've got to say. First up, from Connor Belshaw, and I'll throw us to you. And he says, what positions do you think are the next priority to strengthen now? Let's discount Talbi. We know he's going to sign. Reinildo's been announced. So other than the ones we've already strengthened, what's the next priority? Is it up front? Is it goalkeeper? Is it centre-half?
Centre-half, yeah. Centre-half for me. I think we need two. I think Johnny mentioned it before. I would be happy if we got another two in. Just, we don't know what the extent of Luke O'Nine's injury is. I know he was shown in the pre-season videos and stuff like that. And also, I highly doubt Dan Ballard's body will be able to last the whole season. You know, it'll be Ballard and one more, won't it? But I would like to see us bring another two in just so then we're covered for that.
What about you, Johnny? Next priority, what would that be?
Yeah, no, I'm the same as Ant. It's great seeing attackers come in. It's really exciting, and the midfielders have been great as well, smashing the record signing. But we need centre backs because if we don't, we're going to be left horrifically short.
Yeah, I think that kind of answers Glenn Sayers' question as well, who says, exciting so far, but do you agree goalkeeper, centre half, and striker positions all need first team additions too? I think we've pretty much answered that question. Yes, that is correct. We do need players in all those positions. Let's go to Ethan Sourdike. Sorry,
you're doing so well.
Sourdike.
You're doing so well.
Sourdike. 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 Sorry, Ethan.
They got bullied at school.
You can get in touch and let me know. You can get in touch and let me know how I did that. I bet you I've got it right. Don't be horrible. Ethan, I'm just going to call him Ethan. Ethan says, of the three promoted teams, do Sunderland have the best chance of staying up? Maybe I'm biased, but I feel they do. The quality of players they're attracting seem to be miles ahead of Burnley and Leeds. What are your guys' opinions on the chances of staying up? Johnny?
I think better than Burnley, without a doubt, as we sit today. I think we've got I think we're a more attractive proposition. I think they're going to be more weakened than we will be in terms of outgoings. And I think we've already shown in the players we've brought in so far that we're aiming a little bit higher. Leeds are a different proposition, though. I think Leeds have probably, being objective, Leeds probably have a bit more chance than us of staying up just because they've got more players in the squad who've been with them in the Premier League and, probably a slightly better setup in terms of the last few seasons in comparison to us. But come the end of the window, I don't think it would be unreasonable to say that we might have the best chance out with the three. It just depends, obviously, massively on what happens over the next 5 or 6 weeks.
I think the one thing which isn't being said enough about Leeds is the fact that they were going to sack Daniel Farke at the end of the season. That's as soon as he's had a bad run, they're going to get rid of him. There's managerial upheaval is not a good sign that early into a season, and then things can escalate. I don't think Leeds stay up. I don't think Burnley stay up. I think we're better than both of them. I think we'll do better than both of them, even. But we'll see. I guess we don't know. But I agree, Ethan. I think we've got the best chance of the three. And I think, we're hoping for one or two teams to have a stinker. I think Brentford are going to have a hard season. And there's always somebody who you just don't expect to have a crap season, have one. There's going to be somebody. It'll probably be one of those teams who've played in Europe.
Palace is my shout.
Yeah, Palace maybe. Palace generally do quite well in the transfer market, but if they lose Mark Gay, that's a big loss. Yeah. And I don't know how you replace him. And then they've got to, they still don't know if they're going to be playing in Europe, do they?
Do you know what no one's mentioned yet about teams who might struggle next year? Wolves. Wolves for me are going to massively struggle. But I'm with you. I think we're probably more likely of the three. Especially if Leeds go on. You mentioned the terrible run in this. I think out the three we're least likely to sack our manager, and that's even if we are on a bad run and we are in the relegation zone. I don't think we'd sack them. So I think we're going to be the more like, I'm trying to figure out whether the more like kind of comfortable stable in that league. You know what I mean? Yeah, stable. That's the one. Yeah. I think we're going to be the more stable out of the three. So for me, why not? Yeah. I don't think it'll be one of them ones where the three go down. You know what I mean? I think 1 or 2 will stay up because I don't think the Premier League is as good as it was the last 3 years, 4 years, to be honest.
No, I would agree with that. Jack Asbury says, how much do you think the AFCON will be playing into the minds of Speakman and Gisolfi when looking at who to bring in and crucially who to let go? I don't think they care, clearly, because they just keep signing loads of African players.
I was going to say, I think if anything, they don't know what's happening by the looks of things.
So someone want to bell Speakman and let them know. By the way, did you realise the AFCON's on in January and we're going to have no players? We're going to be playing friggin' Zach Johnson and Joe Anderson centre-half against Man City. I don't think they care particularly, and it probably says a lot about, maybe they've seen this as an opportune time to sign African players because maybe they're less fancied. And it sounds daft, but maybe clubs are less likely to part with money for good African players in a year where they know they're going to lose them for like 5-6 weeks of the season, maybe. I don't know.
Can I counteract that question, Gav? Kind of counteract it. The games where they miss are kind of the majority of the games where we're not going to be thinking about winning anyway. You know what I mean? It's
we'll be thinking about winning, but whether we manage to do it is
they're like free hits to one. Like City away or whatever it is. It's a free hit, isn't it? You know what I mean? If we get a point, brilliant. But even if them players were playing and fit playing, it is still probably going to think we're going to lose to see. So for me, I wouldn't be thinking about it at all, to be honest.
The only big one's Leeds at home, isn't it? 27th of December. That's the big game that they're going to miss. But anything could have happened. Even if they didn't go to AFCON, they could have got a red card. They could have got injured the week before. They might have dropped out of form. Who knows? You can't predict that. 6 months in advance.
Yeah, I doubt they really care. They're probably thinking more about the season as a whole rather than a small period of losing players. Christian at XTN_90 says, not a question, but he comes across like the Mozambique 09 in his interview with the club. Determined, hard-working, and all with a smile on his face. I can see why Atleti fans were sad to see him go already. Yeah, fair comment. The Mozambique 09.
Mozambique 09 is the best thing I've ever heard for him.
The phrase that's never been said before.
I can't wait till next season, about 6 games in. He does a smile.
I don't think there's a Sunderland player I could associate less with Mozambique than Luke O'Nien as well.
Yeah. Dan Harrison, who is, of course, part of our team. Hello, Dan. He asks, with the signing of several new midfielders and the potential of a Dan Neil exit, do you think there's a world in which Lefebvre drops deeper to impact the game further and we look to utilise him more in the role he played under Lebris at Lorient? I'll go to you with that one, Johnny. That's a good question. Do you think we're going to see Lefebvre in a deeper role? I thought in the playoff final, when he dropped deeper for the last, 10, 15 minutes, totally different player. And, it's not beyond the realms of possibility. That's where we see him maybe as we try to adapt to the Premier League, he might play a more familiar role to him.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. He could have just texted us, if he wanted to know that. But no, I think it is a good point, though, because I was surprised how well Lefebvre played in that role when he moved there eventually. I mean, I know it was slightly different because both of them were sitting a little bit deeper, weren't they, the midfielders, and then we were throwing a few more men forward. But I thought he was brilliant when he went deeper at Wembley. Whereas I was always an advocate of sticking Lefebvre further forward, which I think most people naturally do, don't they, with your attacking players. But I mean, as well, the profile of midfielders we're bringing in being box to box, energetic, able to get stuck in and just, run around the pitch for 90 minutes. I think there are worse setups that we could have than Lefebvre deeper, being able to get on the ball and dictate a bit more and let the people ahead of him do the running and be his legs, because there's no sense in having one of your best creative on the ball players run themselves into the ground if they don't need to. So whether it is sitting deeper, which I think really it probably is going to end up that way, I think Dan's probably right. But whether it's deeper or further forward, as long as there are two to do the running and Lefebvre to be on the ball, I think that's the way that we've got to play. But yeah, I do agree. I think I can see him sitting deeper as time goes by, without a doubt.
Would you agree with that, Ant? Do you think that's possibly where he's going to end up?
Yeah, totally. And I think you've got to play. Lefebvre is probably going to be our best player, our most exciting player for assists and everything like that. Play him in his best position. So if that means he has to drop deep and play like how he did under Reggie back in the day, then fair enough.
Yeah. And last but not least, John Harrison asks, how many points are we going to win the league by? At least 20, John. I think Liverpool have gotten out on us. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
The highest number of points to win the league is in Premier League history. That plus one. The question has shocked Gav so much. We've broken. Gav bot has stopped responding.
I am back. I am back. I don't know, signal problems, techie issues, whatever. I was about to make a really...
me and Johnny getting worried if it was going to do the outro.
Yeah, I was going to make a really funny quip there, but never mind. Just missed out on it.
I'm sure it would have been hilarious, mate. Yeah, don't worry.
Do you remember when Man City and Arsenal, was it Man City and Arsenal, Man City and Liverpool, or maybe Arsenal and Liverpool, where they both finished on 90 odd points during COVID?
Mm-hmm. City and Liverpool, was it 98 and 97?
That would happen to us. We would finish on a point less.
Yeah. If we ever got 100 points in some miracle world, somebody's getting 101, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, so we'll see. But no, hey, we all start on 0, and you've got to try and win every game. You never know. But maybe next season we might win the league.
Let's not be ridiculous and say first season back, but second season back. Yeah, that's fine.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, chaps. Been great. Really enjoyed it. And I can guarantee by the time this thing goes out, it will be dated. But never mind. We'll see. People can get a snapshot of what we thought when we recorded this on Tuesday evening. Anyways, thank you very much, Johnny. Been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. Pleasure as always.
Cheers, Anne. Thank you very much, mate.
Thank you so much. Yeah, been lovely.
Yeah. And thank you to the listeners. We are here tomorrow with another podcast. We've been here every single day throughout the summer and we'll continue to do so. There's loads to catch up on. If you missed out on Bomber's absolute bombshell picks in the top 10, which went out on Tuesday, make sure you listen to it. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but me and Johnny made a noise which I can only describe as being like a cat being strangled as he heard one particular pick. It was Gary Neville-esque. So make sure you tune in to listen to that and hear what shockers Bomber had.
Bomber, I love you and all that, but Christ almighty, mate.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say about that.
We'll not spoil it for the listeners who haven't heard them. There's also on this week, which went out on Monday, which was another deep dive into some key moments in Sunderland's history. That was Chris, Kelvin and Andrew, and it was another great episode talking about the likes of John Cahoon and who else was on that one? I've totally forgotten already. Sean Thornton, yes. Right. Sean Thornton with his name tiled into the floor, had his gaff somewhere in Sunderland and sitting in the glass spider with his Von Dutch hat on.
Do you know what? I completely forgot he scored that goal against Chelsea. Completely forgot about it.
It was a hell of a goal, wasn't it?
That was a cracking goal.
yeah. So some reminiscing about some characters that you might have forgotten about on this week. And yeah, plenty of insight. As I mentioned before, we've spoken to experts about some of these players who we've signed. So if you haven't caught up with them, make sure you grab them. But yeah, we're going to have pods every single day this week. Plenty to come. Get subscribed. Leave us comments on Spotify. Give us 5-star ratings, all that jazz. Tell your mates. I mean, since we started this new iteration of the podcast, the amount of people who tell us they actually listen to it is scary and it's a bit daunting. I don't really like that. So many people who know us listen to us talk shite about Sunderland, but there we go. But thank you very much for listening. That just leaves me to say thank you very much, chaps. Thank you to the listeners. We'll see you tomorrow. Catch you then.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.